Hi, so let's start writing code for patterns, right? So the first pattern that I want to pick is basically a very simple pattern which looks like this. So generally in patterns, what will happen is you will get a value of n, and depending upon that value of n, your pattern will be like the size of the pattern will vary depending upon n. So for example, this is a pattern for n is equals to 4. Similarly, the same pattern will look something like this if n was 3, right? So it kind of depends upon what is the value of n, and that defines what exactly your pattern will look like. But there is a very, like as the name suggests, there is a pattern to it. So for example, we can see if n is 3, we have 3 rows and each row has 3 columns. Whereas if n is 4, we have 4 rows and each row has 4 columns, right? So that's basically what you need to do. As soon as you get a pattern problem, you need to try and write it down for different values of n, and then try to see what exactly is going on in that pattern. This is a very simple pattern, very clear what we need to do here, right? So we need to answer our 3 questions. The first question being, how many rows do you need to print? So we need to print n rows. If n is 4, we need to print 4 rows. If n is 3, we need to print 3 rows. So we need to print n rows. Second question, how many columns in the ith row? In a generic ith row, how many columns are there? So for example, if n is 4, each row, irrespective of the value of I, irrespective of the row number, each row has n columns. Each row has 4 columns if n is 4. Each row has 3 columns if n is 3. So ith row has n columns, right? So n rows and each row has n columns. The third question we had to answer was what to print. And it's very straightforward. What do we need to print? We need to print stars. It's not changing, right? We just have to print stars. We have to continuously keep printing stars. So what we need to print is a star. That's the pattern that we need to write code for. Okay, so as we've discussed earlier, the pattern will have, most of your patterns will have a particular format. The code will be in a particular format. What it will look like is, in general, we'll have some n, which will basically take input from the user, right? As soon as you have the n input, then you will have a loop which will basically be for number of rows. So if you have n rows, you will write n. If you have a different number of rows, then you write that number here, right? So you have n rows here. So we have a loop for n rows. Effectively what's happening here is, initially your I will be 1. So you'll come inside this loop for I is equals to 1. Then you will come inside this loop for I is equals to 2. Then you will come here for I is equals to 3. So if I can write a generic code here which works for all I, then I'm basically done. So this code, first it will get I is equals to 1, so it will print the first row. Then it will get I is equals to 2, it will print the second row, and so on. That's basically what we need to do. That's basically what we need to do. Okay, so that's the format we have here. So seems like we have n rows, so this will be n. Now for each row, what will we have to do? So let's try to zoom in on this. So what will be inside here? Let's write here. So once you are here, then you are not worried about the complete pattern. You're just worried about a particular row. So now if I think of how to print this particular row, seems like I need to have a loop. How many times that loop need to run? That is number of columns that you have. Here, each row has equal number of columns. In patterns that we will see later, each row can have different number of columns, but in this example, each row has the same number of columns, that is n. So we'll take a j, which is representing the column number, and we will put a loop which will go again till n, because each row has n columns. And what will we do? We will basically print star here because every time we just need to print star. We will increment j, right? We will increment j. So what that will do is, first you will come for I is equals to 1. Then for I is equals to 1, you will start j from 1, go till n and print a star. So you're done with these. Once you're done with these, then you need to print an enter. So after this while loop, we can print an enter. System.out.println will print an enter. And once you're done with that, of printing enter, then you can increment the value of I as well. I think that's basically the structure of the code that we will be looking at. We will have an outer loop that will basically run for the rows. Then within that outer loop, we will be worried about a particular row. And we need to think of a generic ith row. In this case, it does not depend upon I. Every row has basically same number of columns and we just need to keep printing stars. So try to break the whole problem in your mind into two parts. First, I need to go through all the rows. Then within the loop, don't worry about the complete pattern. Just think of the ith row and how you will take care of that. Okay, so that should basically do it for us. Let's quickly write this code. Should be very straightforward. Let's just quickly do it. Perfect. Create a new class. Let's call it pattern1. Okay, I'm going to include the main. So first of all, we need to take n input from the user. So let's create a scanner. Right, let's create a scanner. And once we have created the scanner, let's take n input from the user. Once you have this n, what we need to do is we need to go through the rows. So we need to have this loop which goes till n, right, which goes till n. Now within this loop, we need to worry about the ith row. In the ith row, you need to have another loop. And using this loop, you need to print n stars. So we need to go till n and it will print n stars for us. So let's print a star. Okay, and j is equals to j plus 1. So there is a slight problem with this code right now, right? So I think the way we are doing this, what will happen is you'll print a star, and because of print ln, you'll move to the next line. So after every star, you're putting a new line. So you will not get stars in the same line, they will all be in a different line. So we don't want, when we are printing a row, we don't want enter after every star. We want these stars to be continuous. Only after we are done with all these stars is when we want to print an enter. So I think we should not take a print ln, we should do a print. Right, let's do a print. So that way all these stars will come in a row. And once you're done with this loop, you have printed n stars. Only then let's put a enter as well. And now we can do I is equals to I plus 1 because we are done with a particular row. Right? So let's try to quickly dry run this. Let's say n is equals to 3. Right? Let's say that we come inside the input we get from the user is n is equals to 3. Then what happens? Okay, so we'll start with I is equals to 1. Right? So let me dry run it this way. So n, I and j. Okay, so n will be 3. First of all, I becomes 1. So 1 is less than equal to 3. So you come inside, j becomes 1. Now j is 1, n is 3, 1 is less than equal to 3. So you print a star. So you have printed a star. And then you create j is equals to j plus 1. So this becomes 2. Right? This becomes 2. Now 2 is still less than equal to 3. So you print another star. And this becomes 3. Now as soon as this is 3, this is still less than equal to 3. So this is still less than equal to n, which is 3. So you go inside again and you print a star and j becomes 4. Now as soon as j is 4, this condition is not true anymore. So this loop is over. So you come below this loop, you put an enter and you increment I. So I is not 1 anymore, I is 2 now. So I'm going to use a different entry here to work on I is equals to 2. So for I is equals to 2, you come here, 2 is less than equal to 3, so you come inside and you make j 1. So j is 1 now. J is less than equal to n, yes it is, you print a star, j becomes 2. 2 is still less than equal to 3, you print a star, and this becomes 3. 3 is still less than equal to 3, you print a star, and you make it 4. Now as soon as it is 4, this loop is done, and you print and enter, you move to the next one, and you make I as 3. 3 is still less than equal to 3, you have a less than equal to n. So you come inside, j is 1, with the same logic you put a star, this becomes 2, you put a star, this becomes 3, 3 is still less than equal to 3, so you put another star, this is 4, 4 is not less than equal to 3, so you're done with this loop, you put another enter, and you increment I to 4. As soon as I is 4, 4 is not less than equal to 3, so the outer loop is done as well, and this is the pattern that will get printed. So seems like our code is going to work, at least the dry run suggests so. So let's quickly run it and see if it actually works. Okay. So it's waiting for our input. So let's give 3, and that's exactly what it prints. So let's try for n is equals to 4. That's exactly what it prints, right? So seems like it's working fine. So one thing that I want you to realize is we spent very little time writing code. Most of our time earlier went into structuring the code in our head, and then it went into dry run, testing our code, right? That's the way it should be. You need to make sure that you spend a lot of time before you start writing code, because that will basically allow you to write good code in one go, and that's very, very important. So just try to structure it, just try to think of it very clearly, and then start typing. Okay, perfect. Thank you.